This movie scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. I was probably 7 or 8 when I first watched it. This movie was also the first time I remember hearing fuck in a movie, not even 6 minutes in, by the way. I didn't used to like this movie that much, though. I used to prefer Terminator 2, a movie that probably is the greatest sequel of all time and arguably an example of the sequel being better than the first movie. However, as time has gone on, I've come to like this movie a lot more. Terminator 1 probably doesn't need much plot explanation because it's not exactly new and it's not obscure either. I bet 95% of the people watching this have watched one of the movies in this franchise, right? If you haven't seen the movie, this will contain spoilers, so fair warning basically. I'll give a brief overview though. Michael Biehn's character Kyle Reese is sent back in time to protect Linda Hamilton's character Sarah Connor from Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, the Terminator. Got it? Not too hard to remember. By the way, this movie sets up great into James Cameron reusing Michael Biehn, Bill Paxton, and Lance Henriksen in Aliens 2. The movie opens with a shot of the future, machines searching for the human resistance. Effects from this era and on this budget don't hold up the best, but it isn't awful. Practical effects age better than CGI in most cases, so this movie's special effects don't look nearly as fake as some of the movies made 10 or more years newer than it. After the opening and for about the first 30 minutes, we see Kyle Reese and the Terminator spawn in. I mean, basically, that's what they're doing, right? One life, no GG, whoever wins. Sarah Connor in this movie in particular is very young and not at all the battle-hardened woman that we see in the next movie. The first act is mostly Reese and the Terminator looking for Sarah while she goes about her life. At the end of the first act, we get to the first not-so-great scene of the movie. The whole eyeball scooping out thing has not really aged very well at all. I feel very bad insulting a 35-year-old special effect, but it's not great. There's a fine line between, oh, that looks good, and oh, that looks bad. The way they have the puppet, I mean, I assume that's what it is, move, and the way that the skin is so pale, it just looks very fake. Again, it's an old effect from 35 years ago. In the meantime of the Terminator healing itself, Reese and Sarah are at the police station being interrogated. If only they had listened to Reese and believed him. Oh well. After the police station shootout, we are treated to another flashback to the future, Back to the Future. Flash forward, I guess, would be the right way to say it. So after the flash forward, we see our heroes arrive at the motel, where Sarah gets taught by Reese how to make pipe bombs, and we get to see a sex scene. Also, Sarah tells the Terminator where they are when she thinks she's on the phone with her mother. The Terminator can alter its voice, so he kills her mom, and when Sarah calls, he answers and impersonates her. So after the sex scene and Reese Skeets is last, we enter the third act. The Terminator finds Reese and Sarah, and they narrowly escape, leading to a chase. I've always wanted the motorcycle that the Terminator's riding since I was a kid, by the way. Reese gets shot, and skipping ahead a bit, they all end up in a factory, and the Terminator's skin is melted off, revealing his metal endoskeleton. All this time later, the Terminator skeleton still looks totally badass. When he emerges from the truck fire, you can feel the heat coming off of him. The smoke coming off his metal does a great job with that effect, and it adds a layer of fear, making you think that even explosions and heat can't take this guy out. Once inside the factory, Reese blows up the Terminator with a pipe bomb, and Sarah crushes the upper half/torso of it, except for the right arm in an industrial press. The ending perfectly sets up the movie for a sequel. Overall, some of the effects have aged poorly, but it's a cheap shot considering the age of the movie. Nothing looks like it did 35 years ago. The story is great, a perfect mix of sci-fi and horror. The soundtrack is very well done too, perfectly fits the 1980s setting of the movie. Only complaints are that I really don't think Sarah is an interesting character as she is in the sequel. Then again, did they necessarily know that they were going to make a sequel to this movie when it came out? She's one of 3 main characters, but she kind of does feel like a sidekick to me. I guess she kind of is since Reese is protecting her, though. Terminator's a great sci-fi horror movie and a must-see for anyone that somehow hasn't seen it yet. You can find it for free on YouTube, which is where I watched it this time, or DVD, Blu-ray, Amazon. I'm sure it's on like every streaming service because it's pretty popular. Take it easy.